Welcome to our deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to unpack a decade of research, but get this, it's research about research itself.
Oh, that's very meta, very meta.
I know, right? We're going back in time, kind of,
Yeah.
to look at the first 10 years of a journal called Organizational Research Methods from 1998 to 2007.
Ah, okay.
So think of it like we're opening a time capsule, right?
Right.
Of research design, measurement, and data analysis, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sometimes looking back helps you see where things are going.
That's true, yeah.
Like we'll talk about those early adopters of web research.
Oh, yeah, yeah, foreshadowing. Love it. But before we get into all that, you might be thinking, why should I care about, old research trends?
Yeah?
Well, it's helpful.
Hmm.
Understanding how research methods have evolved over time, that helps us evaluate any study we come across with a more critical eye.
It's like knowing the history of cooking. You can appreciate a classic dish even more, when you understand the techniques and ingredients that went into it.
I love that analogy. Food always works.
Right.
Okay, so let's dig in. Guinness and the team, they analyzed 193 articles from organizational research methods, and one thing immediately jumps out.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, the sheer dominance of quantitative research. Almost 90% of the articles.
Wow, 90%.
That's a lot. That's a landslide. Makes you wonder, though, if maybe some valuable insights were missed.
Oh, how so?
Well, because qualitative research was kind of sidelined.
Well, that's a great point. It definitely reflects the mindset, I think, at the time. But
Yeah.
it also raises questions, right, about what might have been overlooked.
For sure. Okay, so let's break down these quantitative trends a little bit. What were the big players in terms of study design?
Well, surveys were the big one.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Over 32% of those articles were all about, designing and conducting surveys.
No surprise there. Surveys are, they're a workhorse, really, in research.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what else was bubbling up back then?
Well, remember, this was the late 90s, early 2000s, right?
Yeah.
So the internet was still relatively new,
Yeah.
but electronic and web-based research was already starting to emerge.
Oh, wow.
About 10% of the articles focused on this.
That's pretty remarkable, actually, to see researchers embracing the internet so early on, especially in a journal dedicated to research methods.
Yeah.
It's like a glimpse into the future of data collection,
Absolutely. They were pioneers, really, paving the way for all the online research we see today.
Fascinating. Okay,
Yeah.
What about measurement? What were the big concerns back then?
I'd say validity was king.
Okay.
Roughly 40% of the articles emphasized making sure that your measures actually captured what you intended them to capture.
Right, yeah.
And then reliability, right? Making sure your measures are consistent was a close second at 23%.
Those are solid fundamentals for sure. You mentioned something else too, though. Level of analysis. What does that even mean?
Then think of it as choosing the right lens for your research. Are you looking at individuals, teams, or entire organizations? Each level offers a different perspective. And getting it right is crucial for drawing accurate conclusions, like if you're trying to understand customer satisfaction, right? Looking at individual customer feedback is important, but you might also need to consider team dynamics within the company and even, the overall organizational culture to get the full picture.
So it's about recognizing that different layers can influence the thing you're studying.
Yeah.
Okay, on to data analysis. What were the researchers geeking out about back then?
Well, multiple regression and correlation were still, kind of the go-to methods.
Yeah.
Showing up in 17% of the articles. Those are classic statistical techniques for figuring out how different variables relate to each other.
That's still reliable.
Yeah.
But I bet there was some new contenders shaking things up.
Right. Oh, yeah. Multilevel research was gaining some traction, appearing in almost 11% of the articles.
Right.
This approach allowed researchers to study those different levels of analysis, individual, team, organization, in a more integrated way.
So instead of looking at those levels in isolation, they could see how they all fit together.
Exactly.
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It was a significant shift. Yeah. Allowed researchers to ask more sophisticated questions and get a more nuanced understanding of organizational dynamics.
Now, amidst this quantitative landscape, we can't forget about, the qualitative research. What were those researchers up to?
Well, they were busy exploring the why behind the what, so to speak. Interpretive research was the most common approach, focusing on understanding the meaning and context behind people's experiences.
So instead of just measuring behaviors, they were trying to get inside people's heads, really, and
Exactly.
understand their motivations and perspectives.
And there were some other intriguing approaches too, like policy capturing.
Policy capturing. That sounds interesting. What's that all about?
Well, it's a way of figuring out the hidden rules that guide people's decision making. So imagine you're trying to understand how managers decide who to promote. Policy capturing would involve analyzing their past decisions to uncover the underlying criteria they're using, even if they're not consciously aware of
It's like
them.
a reverse engineering the human brain.
Kind of, yeah.
And you mentioned another approach, action research. What makes that one stand out?
Action research is all about collaboration and real-world impact. So researchers work hand in hand with organizations to, identify problems, implement solutions, and evaluate the results.
So it's not just research for research's sake.
Right.
It's about making a tangible difference.
Precisely. And, it's fascinating to see how these diverse approaches, both quantitative and qualitative, offer different, but equally valuable ways of illuminating the complexities of organizations.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. From the dominance of quantitative research to the rise of new methods like web-based research and multi-level modeling and the persistent presence of qualitative inquiry. But here's the million-dollar question.
Okay.
What does all of this mean for someone like you listening right now who's trying to, make sense of research today?
That's where things get really interesting. By understanding these historical trends, you gain a superpower. Yeah, the ability to critically evaluate research with a more discerning eye.
I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Well, when you encounter a research study, you can now ask, were the methods cutting edge for their time, or were they, lagging behind? Did the researchers consider the appropriate level of analysis? Are the measures valid and reliable? Could multi-level influences be at play?
So instead of just accepting research findings at face value, we can put on our detective hats and really scrutinize the methods behind them.
Precisely. And there's another layer to this. By spotting the up-and-comers, the methods that were emerging back then, but now are mainstream, you can start to anticipate what might be the next big thing in research.
It's like getting a glimpse into the future of research.
Yeah.
So what do you think, based on what was bubbling up in those early days, what's become a game changer in the field today?
Well, if we look back at what was gaining traction in that 1998 to 2007 period, I mean, multi-level modeling has really exploded.
Yeah.
It's become such a powerful tool for understanding complex systems.
Mhm.
And of course, the internet, right? I mean, it's completely revolutionized data
Oh,
collection.
yeah.
Remember all those early web-based studies we were talking
Yeah,
about? They were
yeah.
just the tip of the iceberg.
It really is mind-blowing to think about how much has changed in just like a couple of
I
decades.
know, it's crazy.
Who knew that a deep dive into a research methods journal could be so illuminating?
Right. It's a good reminder that research is always evolving. I mean, the methods that we use today, they'll probably seem, quaint even in another 20 years.
That is a humbling thought.
Yeah.
So for you, dear listener, we leave you with a challenge.
Oh.
Yeah. As you navigate the world of research, whether it's for work, school, or just personal curiosity, remember what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
Put on your critical thinking cap. Ask those tough questions about the methods being used.
And don't be afraid to look beyond the mainstream. I mean, what cutting edge approaches are being developed right now that might transform, the way we study organizations in the years to come?
That's a great point. Keep your eyes open, stay curious, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one pioneering the next big methodological breakthrough.
You never know.
That's all for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Happy researching, everybody.